Well, hello you guys. Welcome back to my channel. For those just tuning in, you've never been here before, my name's Krysten Novak. I'm an online fitness coach for the Natty Hour, and today I have a really exciting video for you guys. It's something that somebody DM'd me on Instagram asking me to do it, and I thought it was an awesome idea. So, firstly, I want to say thank you for the person who recommended this video. If you guys ever have any ideas or suggestions of any type of content that you want to see, just send me a message. Let me know. I am here to help you guys. So if there's anything that I don't cover that you're curious about, please make sure you ask, you guys. I would be happy to do a video on it for you guys. So without further ado, let's get into it. So today I'm going to show you guys how to set up a training program. I think that there are a lot of coaches and even free programs on there that aren't really specific to people's needs, and they're just kind of a laundry list of exercises for you to do, and it doesn't really achieve our number one goal, which is to change your body composition. Whether you are trying to lose weight, whether you are trying to put on some muscle, our goal is to put on some lean body mass in an optimal time efficient way. So today I'm going to show you guys how to set up a training program. If you're looking to just put on a little bit of muscle, I'm going to go over how I set that up for you guys. So before we actually get into it, I'm going to quickly discuss some very important things that need to be considered and understood before you actually set up your training program. So firstly, the number one thing that people get kind of obsessed about is their rep ranges. They think that if you're a power lifter, you need to train in a low rep range. If you are a bodybuilder, you need to train in a medium rep range. And if you're trying to lose weight, you need to train in a high rep range. And I'm here to say that basically all of those are wrong. What? I think no matter what your goal is, whether you are trying to lose weight and whether you are trying to put on some size, or whether you are a bodybuilder or a power lifter, or not, you need to actually consider all three of these type of rep ranges. So let's quickly break it down. First, we have our low rep range. This is typically around 1 to 5 reps. People will say that this is meant just for power lifters, and bodybuilders shouldn't use it because it doesn't recruit the slow twitch fibers. Well, that's not necessarily true. High reps don't just recruit slow twitch fibers, low reps do as well. So because of this, low reps have actually been shown to yield strength gains, and strength gains ultimately lead to higher hypertrophic responses. If we're training within a low rep range, strength is our primary goal here. If you're training for strength purposes, specificity is needed here. So because of this, high amounts of volume need to be performed in lower reps so you can practice the movement and get stronger. Next, we have our medium rep ranges. This is typically about 6 to 10 reps, and it's actually been shown that this rep range causes the most overall hypertrophy. So it's an important rep range that you want to make sure that you implement into your training program. Lastly, we have our high reps. This is typically about 12 to 15 reps. This is a very good rep range that you want to make sure that you are training in. High reps have been shown to cause glycogen depletion during a workout, which aids in muscle cellular stretching, which will lead to cellular growth. So because of that, it's a good rep range that you want to implement, but that doesn't mean that it's going to tone you like a lot of people think. The only way to tone yourself is by putting on muscle, by incorporating all three of these rep ranges, and then being in a caloric deficit later on and losing weight. There's no specific rep range that's going to help you tone. You have to actually build muscle first before you can actually see this toned look that people are looking for. And then last thing that I want to quickly touch on is that the number one thing that's shown in the literature that actually leads to muscle growth is overall volume. So your volume doesn't have to be just accumulated in one day. You know how some people will just train arms one day a week or chest one day a week? That volume that you're training in that day doesn't have to be limited to that day. Your volume is cumulative, meaning that you can train chest a couple of times a week in order to hit your total weekly volume amount, and by hitting a higher volume amount over time, progressive overload, this is what's going to allow you to actually build muscle. So without further ado, let's get into it. I'm setting up a program that's specific to myself. You guys can, if you're a bikini competitor or anything like that, and if you're looking to gain a little bit of strength in the squat, deadlift, and bench, then by all means, this may be a good program for you to implement. But I'm just going to go over kind of the basic principles as to why I'm setting up this program this way, and then I encourage you to adjust your program based on your goals and what areas you're trying to grow, essentially. Any lagging body part, you want to try to incorporate it closer to the beginning of the week. So for me, me, that is my lower body and my shoulders. So that's why my first day right here, we're starting out with a full body day. So for every single day, I'm actually setting up a 4-day training split right now. We're gonna do a full body, lower body, upper body, and then another full body. So full body, and as you can see with this S here, that stands for strength. So today is a strength day. For all of my training days, I actually split up my workouts from compound movements and secondary movements. So compound movements are multi-joint movements which require a lot more energy, so I never perform any type of compound movement at the end of my workout. That's just a recipe for disaster, and typically for compound movements, we are going to be training more so in the lower rep ranges because strength is something that we want to focus on when we're doing compound movements. It makes more sense to do it at the beginning of our workouts when our energy is at its highest. So I start out with typically about 2 to 3 compound movements every single day, and I'm going to bold them right here. So first exercise we're starting out with are going to be squats, and I'm going to show you guys how I set this up on a 4-week block. So squats, I'm going to start off with a little bit higher of a rep range of 4 sets of 8, and I'm going to do this as well for overhead press, and for bench press I'm going to only do 3 sets of 8. Now I know the 8 reps do fall within the medium rep range, but you'll see how this is going to help me increase my strength as we progress during the week. So the biggest thing is not to get married to the rep ranges. People get so obsessed, well, should I do 8 to 10, 8 to 12, 12 to 15? It doesn't really matter as long as you're progressing. Our primary goal is to progress over time. So I'm going to show you that within these 4 weeks. So now that we have our 3 compound movements, I'm going to move into my secondary movements. I typically don't do more than 8 exercises during a training block. I'll do a minimum of 6 and a maximum of 8. So we've already have 3 compound movements. So so it's a full body day today, and I'm just taking, because it's day 1, some of my legging body parts, and it's going to be incorporated into my day 1 here. So before I go any further, now I think it's important to address frequency. So many people think that you have to do a leg day, you have to do a chest day, back day, and keep it all separate. If you do this, you will find that by the end of, say, your chest day, because everybody likes training chest, you will find that you're completely fatigued, sore, and completely done by the end of your chest day. You're so tired and sore to the point where you can't actually train chest until the following week. So your recovery is very, very slow because you just completely annihilated chest in one single day. And remember how I mentioned earlier that our overall volume is what's going to allow us to actually grow our muscle most efficiently. If we actually take our chest exercises and spread it out during the week, typically what you will find here is that your strength is actually going to go up. So let's consider this as an example. Say we do day 1 where we do just chest. So say day 1 you do bench press. Maybe you do 4 sets of 12. That's what's prescribed to you. Set 1 for 12 reps, maybe you do 135 pounds. Set 2, maybe for 12 reps you do 125 because you're starting to get tired. Set 3 at 12 reps, you can only do 115. And set 4, maybe you have to drop it down to 100 pounds. Your strength's going down because say this is your last exercise of your chest day and your chest is completely tired and fatigued. Now, say we want to take bench press and we want to split it out within 2 days. You can do 2 to 3 days, that's my recommendation. But let's spread out bench press with the same amount of volume, 4 sets of 12, over 2 days instead. So bench press day 1, and then we do bench again, we'll say day 3, we'll give it a day in between. So day 3. So on day 1, we're only going to do 2 sets of 12 because we're spreading out our volume over the week versus doing it all in one day. 2 sets of 12, maybe our first set, because it's maybe our first exercise, maybe we haven't actually trained chest yet today because it's a full body day and we're doing a bunch of other stuff. Maybe we were actually able to do 12 reps at 145 pounds. And then our set number 2, we did 12 reps at maybe 135 pounds because we're starting to get tired. That's it for chest that day. That's all you do. Then you go to day 3, and again, we're doing 2 sets of 12 to account for our total overall volume. And maybe let's just say for convenience, we were able to do the same rep range. So set number 1 for 12 reps, we did 145. Set number 2 2 for 12 reps, we did 135. As you can see, comparing if you did 4 sets of 12 in one day or 2 sets of 12 over 2 days, you can see that your strength is a lot higher by spreading it out, by increasing your frequency but reducing your volume from one day and spreading it out over 2 days. So that is something that has been shown to really help increase strength. It's really helped people increase their overall volume, which therefore allows them to grow muscle. So that is why you will see these days kind of random, but they're very strategically thought out in order for you to still hit your overall volume within the week versus within one day. One arm cable pull-ins, and now as you can see, I am not bolding any of these exercises, so that means that these are my secondary movements. And my secondary movements, I like to train within the medium reps and high rep ranges. And I do a rep range for 8 to 12 because that's going to allow me to progress over the 4 weeks. This is known as double progression. So before we continue, let me give you an example. So as a moderate rep range within the 8 to 12, say week 1, we max out at our 12 reps at 25 pounds. Now when we move to week 2, our goal is to increase our weight, but maybe we'll increase our weight to 30 pounds, but we can only hit 10 reps. Then week 3, same thing, we're on the lower end of the spectrum of 8 reps. So our goal is to make sure that we aren't only doing 30 pounds for 8 reps, we're still increasing our weight, but only able to hit 8 reps. Does that make sense? So this is known as double progression. So that's why you will see 8 to 12 rep ranges. After our one arm cable pull-ins, we're going to do a horizontal row. It really doesn't matter. Choose an exercise that you enjoy doing and that you feel it the most, that you're able to make the most mind muscle connection. So many people get so obsessed with some of the exercises that they have to do, but I think the biggest thing to remember is to pick exercises that allow you to activate your muscles. And so many people think that you have to switch it up all the time. You really don't, especially for your compound movements. When people come to us, we keep them on these compound movements within different rep ranges for 12 weeks because it's very important to actually practice these exercises. If you don't practice it, you forget how to do it and then your strength goes down. So it's very important to make sure that you are practicing exercises that are gonna allow you to make mind muscle connection and allow you to grow. So you really don't have to switch it up as often as everybody thinks that you do. And then because I just love shoulders and that's still a legging body part, we're gonna do some dumbbell lateral raises, and then we're gonna finish off with some leg extensions within 8 to 12 reps. So I'm gonna keep these 8 to 12 reps over the 4 weeks. Week 4 will be a deload week where we lift everything at 60%. I think it's very important to implement deload weeks on a regular basis. It gives your body time to recover, which will allow you to lift heavier when you start your next training block. So every 4 to 6 weeks, we definitely recommend doing a deload week. So let's quickly just discuss how we're gonna progress the squat, overhead press, and bench press over these next 4 weeks. So we are trying to increase our strength, therefore we are going to reduce our rep ranges here and lift heavier on week 2. So instead of doing 4 sets of 8, we are gonna move on to 4 sets of 6. And for bench press, 3 sets of 6. And then week 3, same thing. We're moving down to 4 sets of 4 and then 3 sets of 4 for bench press, which will again allow us to make sure that we are increasing our weight from week to week. And then like I mentioned previously, week 4 is when we are doing our deload week, where I'll drop a set for my secondary movements and then just reduce my intensity to about 60% for my compound movements. So before we move on to day 2, let's just quickly discuss the RPE scale. I think that this gets a little bit complicated for a lot of people who are just starting out, but I think it's a good reference for people who are just starting out and they're not really sure how much they should be lifting. So just for simplicity purposes, I have put everything at an RPE 8. And what this means, it just gives you kind of a reference of how many reps you should have left in your tank. So RPE 8 means that you should be lifting as heavy as you can to the point where by the time you hit your last rep, you still have about 2 to 4 reps left in your tank. So meaning that you aren't training completely to failure where you have no reps left in your tank. If you're testing your 1 rep maxes, which we won't get into for the sake of this video, just because it'll get super long. But if you are testing your 1 rep maxes, you should be at an RPE 10, which means you have 0 reps in the tank. But most of the time you should be training within an RPE 8 where you have just a couple of reps left in the tank. So if you feel like you can do more than 4 reps on any of your movements, secondary or compound movements, then you're not lifting heavy enough. Let's move on to day 2. We are gonna move on to a lower body day, and today is gonna be a hypertrophy day. So I like to separate it out between strength hypertrophy days. I don't really do power days or anything like that. I just find it's not really necessary for my goals. For our hypertrophy day, we are gonna be training in a more higher rep range. So our compound movements for today are just gonna be deadlifts. You can choose choose whatever type of deadlift you want, and then hip thrusts. 2 compound movements on this day, and then we're just gonna move it into our secondary movement. So it really doesn't matter. You can choose what other exercises you like, whatever exercises that are gonna allow you to make that mind muscle connection, stuff we've already talked about. So for simplicity purposes, for the rest of my secondary movements, we're gonna keep it between that 8 to 12 rep range while implementing the double progression model. So as we move on to week 2, week 3, and week 4, we're gonna progress our compound movements. We're gonna increase our rep ranges versus reduce our rep ranges, because our goal here is hypertrophy. We aren't actually trying to make strength gains here. We're actually trying to lift more reps over time. So that is why I like to indicate between the strength days and hypertrophy days, because it's going to change from week to week based on the reps. So that is how week 2 and week 3 will be set up. Week 2 will be 4 sets of 12, and then week 3 we're going to do 4 sets of 15. Then week 4 we have a deload week. All right, moving on to day 3, we're going to do an upper body strength day. So our compound movements for today are going to be bench press and overhead press. And again, it's going to be very similar to day 1, where we are increasing our strength over the 4-week block. So we're going to start out with 4 sets of 12, and then week 2 we're moving to 4 sets of 8. And then for our secondary movements, we're just going to put in some secondary movements that are some legging body parts that need to be trained. So we have a little bit of back, a little bit of shoulders in there, and a tricep exercise. So I put tricep exercise because, again, you can do whatever exercise you want that allows you to make that mind muscle connection. So it doesn't matter. Just make sure that you are progressing over the 4-week block. And then week 2 for our compound movements, we're doing 4 sets of 8. Week 3, 4 sets of 6, and then week 4 is our deload week. All right, and then our last training day is day 4, which we're going to do a full body hypertrophy day. I'm doing a hypertrophy day here because it's evenly spread out, because day 1 was a full body strength day. We already did a lower body hypertrophy day, upper body strength day, and now just to even it out, especially for our lower body, we're going to do a hypertrophy day. So our compound movements are going to be squats and deadlifts. Squats, the reason why I'm training squats a couple days a week, and same with bench and deadlifts, is because I'm hoping to do powerlifting again, and these are some exercises that I want to improve on. So in order to improve on them, you have to actually practice them. So because it's hypertrophy, we are going to be doing a higher rep range throughout the 4 weeks. So because it's day 4, this is typically the end of the week where you're definitely feeling a lot more fatigued. So I am going to actually taper off my rep ranges from week to week for week 4. So that is my reasoning for actually dropping the rep ranges for my compound movements from week 1, 2, and 3. And then again, week 4 is our deload week, where we operate at 60%. That is how I would set up a training program. Basically, what you want to do is make sure that you are training each muscle and or a movement 2 to 3 times a week. So as you can see, I'm definitely training each muscle group 2 to 3 times a week. Some of them are a little bit more than others, like shoulders and even legs, but like I said, those are legging body parts where they do require more volume in order for me to grow. So that is my reasoning. If you want to bring up your chest, then I would replace some of those secondary shoulder exercises with more chest exercises. That is a way for you to kind of tailor it to your needs. As you can see, I don't train arms a whole lot. You definitely get a lot of recruitment in your arms from doing chest and back exercises. I do have some isolation movements in there. If you want to add a 5th day where you do just single joint movements and you just focus on some smaller muscle groups such as your arms, maybe your calves, maybe your abs, then by all means, there's nothing wrong with that. Use the same principles that we've applied here. One final thing, I know this video is long, but I think it's going to add some value to you guys. You want to ensure when you are actually implementing this, so you have your training block built and you're ready to actually use it, make sure that you actually track your exercises, because our number 1 goal within this 4 weeks is to achieve progressive overload. What does this mean? This is just a tool where you actually progress in the weight room over time. So there's a couple ways to ensure that you are actually progressing. This doesn't just mean lifting as heavy as you can every single time you enter the weight room. That's not smart, and that's actually going to lead to injury. And when you are actually testing your 1 rep max every single time you go to the gym where you're lifting heavy as fuck every single time, you're actually going to notice that your form breaks down. And if your form breaks down, you're actually reducing your likelihood of achieving progressive overload. So a few ways to ensure that you're actually progressing in the gym. This is where you are increasing your load load, so the amount of weight that you are lifting, increasing your sets, increasing your reps. So that's why we have the double progression rep scheme, 8 to 12. So that's where week 1 to week 2, you want to be progressing in the amount of reps or weight that you are lifting. Another way is actually increasing your technique and range of motion. So if you find that you can lift really heavy with squats, but maybe you're not actually achieving depth, then focusing more on that range of motion is a way of progress. Another way is to increase your time under tension. So say you're doing some isolation movements, let's, for example, say you're doing bicep curls and you have maxed out the amount within your 8 to 12 rep range, where say you can only curl 25 pounds at 8 reps and you can't lift any heavier and you've maxed out your progression within that rep range. What you want to do then is increase your time under tension. So by this I mean where you come down very, very slowly versus just going through the range of motion. Increase your time under tension. So where you come down on the eccentric very, very, very slowly. And that's another way of progress. Final way of measuring your progress is by decreasing your rest periods. Obviously use this intelligently, especially for your compound movements. You want to make sure that you're being smart and you're not increasing your risk of injury, but maybe more so for your secondary movements. Maybe you have about a 90 to 60 second rest. Maybe you can reduce that to 30 to 60 seconds rest while still progressing within your rep range. So that is our number one goal when we are implementing this actual 4-week training block. I think that's about all I have for you guys today. I hope you found this helpful. Having said that, I do actually have a link down below for a free template of what I just showed you guys. I took out the exercises because I want you guys to practice building this on your own, but you guys can download it for free. There is actually also a tab in there that gives you some exercise demos as well as tutorials for some compound movements. So make sure you guys check that out, link down below. And yeah, let me know what you guys think. Hope this helps you guys. Other than that, I'm gonna leave it there. Thanks for watching, guys. Make sure you like, comment, and you subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one.